Welcome everyone to another History Happy Hour. How you all doing tonight? Okay, good. Ready for some ballads?
Yes.
Well, welcome, Katie.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming out for this.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too to hear Tales of Birds and Ballads.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this. Well, we'll kick things off.
Okay, sounds good. So, when I was a little kid, I used to lie on the floor and listen to my mother's record collection. My mother could not carry a tune in a bucket, but she loved music and she had everything. She had opera and she had show tunes and she had swing and she had country music and she had bluegrass music, and they used to take us to bluegrass festivals and stuff like that. But my mom was really kind of a folky at heart, and she had this big, I'm dating myself, I'm at an age where I don't even care anymore. She had this great big red Book of the Month record collection, and my favorite part of that record collection was listening to all of the folk music, including like Joan Baez singing ballads and Ian and Sylvia singing their folk songs in French. I learned songs in French before I even knew what they meant. And I would lie there on the floor and I would just listen with the headphones on and sing along. And there was something about ballads, and I've always been like a pretty upbeat person. But there was something about those really sad, really deadly ballads that just struck me right here. And so I started singing them when I was like 10. The first one I think I learned, one of the first ones I learned was Silver Dagger, which I sang to warm up when Bobby and Julie were first here. And then Barbara Allen, and then I started looking for more, and then I started looking for more, right? So I was singing them in high school when it wasn't really cool to be singing them. Everybody else is listening to Pat Benatar, and I'm listening to bluegrass and ballads and old time music. And I got to college, and I started singing in coffee houses, and occasionally I'd roll one out, right? But they were my favorites. Then I was a banker for a while, and then I taught at Tusculum for a while, and then I took a leave of absence to go and get my PhD, and one of the things I thought about doing was studying them to learn more about them. And I was afraid that if I did, that this was really foolish and dumb, but I was afraid that if I did, they'd lose their magic for me, because it always felt like when I was singing one, I was a little bit acting, a little bit singing, a little bit participating in this history that was way, way, way longer than I could even know, right? And I was afraid they'd lose their magic. That was kind of dumb, but I didn't do my dissertation on ballads like I sort of thought I would. I did it on a literary topic, which was totally fascinating and great, and that's a whole other story. But I kept studying them. And when I put my PhD program together, I decided to study medieval British lit because there are supposedly the origins of the ballads are in medieval British culture. It actually goes way further back than that, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But I thought I'm going to start there because I was already a folkie. I was already singing these things. I was already hearing people talk about the connections between British Isles and Appalachia. And to me, this was an amazing space where you could actually see the connections. One thing about the connections is that they really are concrete. And I'm going to talk specifically about bird symbolism and ballads tonight. That's not the only way you can tell about those concrete connections. But they're also really complex, because just like the ballads that got sung over there and then moved over here and changed to suit the people who were singing and using them, the symbols changed. So, but they didn't change completely. So you can see that connection between the British Isles and Appalachian Ballads, if you look at certain strains, certain themes, and what I'm going to talk to you tonight about are birds and animal symbolism, but specifically birds. So I wore all my bird stuff. I have my feather earrings on, I have my feather bracelet on. This is a raven bracelet that was made by Jean Chilton, Alaskan native. My camp counselor made this red-winged blackbird pin for me because I wrote a song about a red-winged blackbird. It has a secret. It opens up, and inside it says, "I will sing for the Lord, for He is good to me." Because she puts Bible verses and everything, and she did little cattails because that's where the red-winged blackbird lives. Very talented woman. It's painted on a piece of deer antler that she found in the woods. She's an amazing jeweler. So I have all my bird stuff, and I've picked out some bird ballads, and we're going to talk about those. The first thing I want to define for you is the word bestiary. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that? I brought some because no English professor worth her salt would show up anywhere without a couple books, right? So I'm going to read out of this one, so I'm going to keep it up here. It's called The Book of Beasts. And I think I want to say this one's 12th century, this one's 13th century. This one, the Physiologus is literally a list of animals. And in medieval times and back before medieval times, animals had particular symbolism. These things go back to Egypt, Greece, Rome, right? And the medieval monks got hold of these lists written in Latin and translated them into English. And then they got used in sermons and things. This one is kind of cool because it has pictures, medieval pictures. So Francis, I'll hand these to you. And y'all can take a look at those and pass them back. But one of the things that was so interesting about animal symbolism is that animals had both a sacred and a secular meaning. And they could be very different. So when I say white horse, what do you think?
That symbol, on the cliffs in England, South
Like
England.
white horse. What is a white horse in a song or a movie or a story?
What's a good guy?
The good guy rides a white horse. A fox.
Sly.
Sneaky, right? A snake. I love them too, but I was asking you what the right. So these symbols are a shorthand, right? And you think about medieval times, the people that these priests were preaching to were not reading the Bible. They were having the Bible interpreted for them by the priests. And the stories that the priests told that were connected with the Bible were often about animals. And sometimes the meanings in those stories were secular and sometimes they were sacred. Same thing happens in the ballads. So when I was putting this together for tonight, I was thinking about, okay, how do I do this? So I thought we'd start with some birds and then we'll talk about each one. We'd start with ballads, each of which has a bird in it. And then we'll talk about the bird, and I will share with you, not on every single one, but on a couple of them, what those birds mean. But before that, when I talk about this fact that this goes back past medieval British culture, it really does. Like Scandinavian symbolism figures into this. I also am nerdy enough that I read Beowulf in Old English because why wouldn't you, right? And one of the things that I think birds do in the ballads is they act as a Greek chorus. And if you're not familiar with that tradition, ancient Greek plays had a chorus, and the chorus kind of helped the audience, nudge the audience in the direction of seeing what was being presented in the play as kind of a lesson, they would comment on what was going on in the play, how to guide the audience toward what they were supposed to see. And I think the birds do that, both as symbols, as shorthand. You hear, oh, turtle dove, oh, owl, oh, right, and you think a certain thing. I think when you get a group of birds in the song, they act a little bit like a Greek chorus. Let me give you an example. This is a song that mothers would have sung to young women. It's a warning. And it's probably a way more effective way of getting the message across than saying, you better be careful who you date, young lady. So it goes like this. You'll recognize the name the minute I start singing. Polly, pretty Polly, come go away with me. Well, Polly, pretty Polly, come go away with me. Before we get married, some pleasures to see. Before we get married, some pleasures to see. So she jumped up behind him and away they did ride. Well, she jumped up behind him and away they did ride. And how he did laugh to have Polly by his side. Well, how he did laugh to have Polly by his side. Oh, Willie, little Willie, I'm afraid of your ways. Oh, Willie, little Willie, I'm afraid of your ways. The way you've been acting, you'll lead me astray. The way you've been acting, you'll lead me astray. Well, Polly, pretty Polly, your guess is about right. Oh, Polly, pretty Polly, your guess is about right. I've been digging on your grave since the middle of last night. I've been digging on your grave since the middle of last night. Oh, Willie, little Willie, please don't you take my life. Oh, Willie, little Willie, please don't you take my life. Won't you let me be a single girl if I can't be your wife? Won't you let me be a single girl if I can't be your wife? But he stabbed her through the heart and her heart's blood did flow. He stabbed her through the heart and her heart's blood did flow. Then into that grave pretty Polly did go. And into that grave pretty Polly did go. He mounted on his horse and he headed back for home. He mounted on his horse and he headed back for home, leaving no one to cry but the wild birds to moan. Leaving no one to cry but the wild birds to moan. So it ends, thank you. It ends with the birds. And what are they doing? They're mourning, moaning, depends on the version of the song you hear, right? They're commenting on what just happened, and they're kind of pushing you in the direction of what you should think, what you should feel. What's interesting about the ballads, and I'll probably point this out in a couple more, is that the versions that came over from the British Isles were often really stripped down compared to the versions that you found in the British Isles. A lot of people who came here were leaving behind all of the old world, the magic of the old world. Not everybody was. There were German settlements here where that was very much alive, but in the Scotch-Irish settlements and a lot of the other ones, you had a lot of people who were trying to strip everything down and make it plain. And sometimes they would take a song like Pretty Polly and do that. So one of the original ones is about a sailor named Jimmy who is actually, he gets Polly pregnant. And he doesn't want to marry her because that means that he would have to give up his life as a sailor. So he murders her. I mean, what else would you do, right? And he gets on board the ship, and the captain says, wait a minute, boys, we can't go anywhere. There's been a murder. We got to figure out who did it. And Jimmy says, well, it wasn't me. And so he and his buddies go off drinking. They get what my father used to refer to as knee walking drunk. You know what I'm talking about, right? And they're walking on cobblestone streets in England, right? So he's lurching around with his buddies. And all of a sudden they're going up an alley, and there's Poppy. It's Poppy's ghost. And she looks just the way she looked when he left her, which wasn't too pretty because she had been stabbed however many times. And he looks up and he sees her there, and she says, yeah, you thought you were getting away, but no. And she lifts up her hand and she cleaves him in two, and boom, he splits in two pieces, and justice is done, right? So there's ghosts, and there's magic, and there's more murder and mayhem, and you can see the British Isles version is much more full of detail and supernatural than the version I sang. But at the end of this version, you have these birds nudging you toward what you ought to think about that. What color horse you supposed Willie was riding? Dark horse, right? Some kind of dark horse. So another direct connection I made was when I was learning Middle English. And I had read this in high school, but it was a lyric poem. It's a lyric poem, and it's probably from between 1240 and 1310, so it's a couple years old. It was in a monk's commonplace book, and people wonder about that because monks' parchment was very precious and hard to come by, and this is not a religious song, but it was important enough to this monk that he wrote it down. It's very famous. You may have studied it in high school. It's called Summer is ikumen in, which means summer has come. Ikumen means has come. So this is what it sounds like. Summer is ikumen in. Lud sing cuckoo. Groweth said and bloweth med, and springeth the wood new. Sing cuckoo. So summer's come. Sing loudly cuckoo. The seed grows, the meadow blows, and the wood springs new. Sing cuckoo. Owl bletteth after lamb, lueth after calve cue. Bullock starteth, book fairteth, Mary sing cuckoo. Cuckoo, cuckoo, well singst thou cuckoo, ne sweet thou never knew. Sing cuckoo, new, sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo, new, sing cuckoo. So the ewe bleats after the lamb, the calf lows after the cow, the bullock jumps, the buck farts. Go ahead, laugh. Sing merrily, cuckoo. Cuckoo, cuckoo, you sing so well. Tell me this is not a direct connection to Appalachian culture. This next line translates as, don't you never stop now. Okay? So you've got bird symbolism there. You've got this cuckoo. The cuckoo brings in the spring. It's a harbinger of spring. It's singing, right? And then you have this ballad that presents the cuckoo in a lot of different ways. And this is a ballad that lots of people know if they know Jean Ritchie, who was a wonderful Kentucky ballad singer. Let's see. This one's a little high, so better sip my tea. The cuckoo, she's a pretty bird. She sings as she flies. She brings us glad tidings. She tells us no lies. She drinks from the pretty flowers to make her voice clear. And she never sings cuckoo for the spring till the spring of the year. A walking and talking and rambling go I. I'm waiting on the sweet Willie, he'll come by and by. I'll meet him in the morning, he's all my delight. I will walk and talk with him from morning till night. Come all you young women, take a warning from me. Don't hang your affection on a green growing tree. The branches will wither, the roots they will die. You will all be forsaken and know not for why. If I am forsaken, I'll not be forsworn, and he's surely mistaken if he thinks that I'll mourn. I'll get myself up in some higher degree, and I'll walk as light by him as he has by me. The cuckoo, she's a pretty bird. She sings as she flies. She brings us glad tidings. She tells us no lies. She drinks from the pretty flowers to make her voice clear. And she never sings cuckoo till the spring of the year. So that's the cuckoo. And you can definitely see the connection between the lyric, just the cuckoo and the springtime things, right? But what's interesting about the cuckoo here, like, what word, and think like Shakespeare, comes from cuckoo? Cuckold, right? Which means somebody whose spouse has been unfaithful to them, right? Well, what's really interesting in this song to me, and I'm an English professor, so I overthink things and have great fun doing it, is that here, this is a song about that, right? This is a song about somebody being unfaithful. Who's unfaithful to who? Willie's unfaithful to the person singing the song, right? And so you have this cuckoo, who's a symbol of cuckoldry, of unfaithfulness. And it's really interesting to me, the line, she's a pretty bird, she sings as she flies, she brings us glad tidings, she tells us no lies. She's not the one lying, even though she's the symbol of the person who's deceitful. So that's what I'm saying about the concrete connections, but sometimes they get worked into that, and you can kind of see the relationship even if it's not direct. I also loved, hey Lisa, I also loved reading Chaucer. And in medieval literature, another thing that used to happen a lot, Chaucer's Parliament of Fowls is a good example, or the Owl and the Nightingale. If you were a poet in medieval Britain, you could not write a poem arguing a point of theology as a person. Because if you did, you would get big trouble. So what you would do is you would have some animals argue about it, like an owl and a nightingale, right? And in the Parliament of Fowls, Chaucer knew exactly what the birds all meant, and they were all arguing with one another, and they all had these personalities that matched up pretty well with the bestiaries. One of the birds that gets mentioned a lot in balladry is sparrows. And not always, but often, like cuckoos, sparrows can be a symbol of infidelity. So I thought I would sing you another song that's related to the cuckoo that I just sang, that has another bird in it. It's called Fair and Tender Ladies. You know this one? Okay. Come all you fair and tender ladies, take a warning how you court young men. They're like a bright star on a summer morning. They first appear and then they're gone. They'll tell to you some loving story. They'll say their love for you is true, and then they'll go and court another, and that's the love they'll have for you. I wish I was on a big tall mountain where the ivy rocks were black as ink. I'd write a letter to my false true lover, whose cheeks are like the morning ink. I wish I was a little brown sparrow, and I had wings so I could fly. I'd fly away to my false true lover, and when he'd speak, I would deny. I wish I'd known when I was younger how hard this love would be on me. I'd have locked my heart in a box of golden. I'd have sealed it with a silver key. So that one's related to and you have another bird that symbolizes infidelity. So I wanted to give you at least one example of a bird that has a direct relationship with something I can actually read you in a bestiary. So forgive me for a minute. I'm going to be my bookish self. We're going to talk about swans. So I'm going to read you what so what's interesting about these bestiaries is that a lot of times the animals, it cracks you up to read them because medieval science was slightly different from what we know as science now. So this is about swans. Oh, and what I was going to say is they had the bees lumped in with the birds because they flew, right? So, and they have the phoenix in here like it's a real thing, and so. Olor the swan is a bird which the Greeks call a cygnus. It is called olor because its feathers are all white. Who on earth ever heard of a black swan? You see, the Greek for all is holos. It is called cygnus in Greek on account of its song, for it pours out a sweetness of music with melodious notes. They say, moreover, that the reason why this bird sings so beautifully is because it has a long, curved neck, and it is obvious that the vibrating voice must give out a rich music as it goes round and round through the lengthy bend. They also say that in the northern parts of the world, once the lute players have tuned up, a great many swans are invited in, and they play a concert together in strict measure. Olor is the Latin name, and Cygnus the Greek one. Sailors quite rightly say that this bird brings good luck. Cygnus is a fowl, most cheerful, fowl, like F-O-W-L, not F-O-W-L, most cheerful in auguries, as Emilianus remarks. The reason why sailors are fond of it is because it does not plunge itself beneath the waves. So this is symbolism about swans. So the song I'm going to sing for you next, I have a special love for, because it's one of the songs that I learned when I was working on my master's degree at ETSU. And I was taking a class from a guy named Tom Burton, who's a Shakespeare scholar, but he loved Appalachian culture. And in the 70s, he and his colleague Ambrose Manning went all through the mountains, especially in western North Carolina, and collected ballads from older ladies who sang them. This one is called the Two Sisters, or if you're in Scotland, it's the Twa Sisters, right? This is the Appalachian version. I'm going to tell you a little story. Remember, I told you a lot of the magic drops out of them, right? But some vestiges of it remain. So I'm going to sing you the Appalachian version, the stripped down version that Tom Burton collected in North Carolina. And then we'll talk a minute about the elements that have fallen away. But the one thing that's still there is the swan. So listen for the swan. Sorry. Believe me, you'll be happy that I took measures so I won't squeak on you. Okay. There were two sisters, loved one man, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary. Sweet William loved the youngest best, and the jury hangs over Rosemary. Oh, sister, sister, walk with me, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, and we'll go down to the miller's pond, where the jury hangs over the rosemary. Well, the eldest pushed the youngest in, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, but she did not sing and she did not swim, and the jury hangs over the rosemary. Oh, sister, won't you lend me a hand, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, and I'll give you half of my land, where the jury hangs over the rosemary. Oh, sister, I'll not lend a hand, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, and I will have all of your land, where the jury hangs over the rosemary. Oh, sister, won't you lend me a glove, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, and you can have sweet William for your own true love, where the jury hangs over the rosemary. Well, sister, I'll not lend a glove, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, and I'll have sweet William for my own true love, where the jury hangs over the rosemary. Well, she floated down and she floated around, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, till she came to the edge of the miller's pond, where the jury hangs over the rosemary. Oh, Miller, won't you come and see, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, what's floated here beside of me, where the jury hangs over the rosemary. Well, it's not a fish and it's not a swan, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, I believe that it's sweet William's love, where the jury hangs over the rosemary. Well, since he could not have his love for his bride, Jenny Flower, gentle Rosemary, sweet William took his his own life, and the jury hangs over the rosemary. So, creepy, right? I think that older sister wrote Black Horse too, right? So if you hear an older version, that like a Celtic version, there's a whole story that's left out. And when I first heard that, I was like, what is it with the swan? So I looked up some older, I'm like, why swan? Because you don't think about swans as being in Appalachian songs. So I looked up the Trois Sisters, the Celtic version, and if you've ever heard, if any of you know the Grateful Dead and you know the Dreadful Wind and Rain, the Jerry Garcia song, where it's related to that, right? And that's related to an older Celtic song. And what happens is the older sister, the first part of the story is the same. They go for a walk, the older sister's jealous, she pushes the younger one in. The younger one drowns, but she magically turns into a swan. No magic in this song, but the swan's still there, right? So she magically turns into a swan. Along comes a harper. Remember the relationship between the harper and the swan in the bestiary, right? The beautiful tunes. And the harper says, oh, a swan. And as you do, he says, I'm going to make a lute out of this swan. And I'll use her long yellow hair for strings. Well, it's the ballad world, so it's weird and magical because swans don't have long yellow hair. But this harper makes a harp, and it's a magic harp. So he goes to sit down at the nobleman's house because bards sang for their dinner, right? Harpers, musicians would sing for their dinner. He sits down to eat dinner. The older sister's at the table. The parents are at the table. Sweet William's at the table. Only he's Hugh in a lot of the Celtic versions. And the harper puts his harp down on the hearth, and because it's a magic harp, what does it do? It starts to play, and then it starts to sing, and it sings about what the older sister did to the younger sister, right? And so she's totally busted by a magic harp that was made from a swan that used to be her sister, right? So there's a concrete connection there, but you have to really look to see what it is. And as you pointed out so astutely a minute ago, swans made for life. And to me, that element is still in there because Sweet William is like, well, if I can't have the one I love, right? Because it's a battle. So it's hard to find happy endings in ballads. Like I said, it's weird that I'm such a happy person. I think it's because I sing it all and I don't have to dig it, right? So I want to talk about doves for a minute. We don't have a whole lot of time left, but I want to talk about doves for a minute because doves, we hear about doves all the time. So what is the sacred meaning of doves? Peace. They brought the doves brought the olive branch to the ark, right? What's the secular meaning of doves? Lovebirds, right? Turtle doves. They're lovebirds. And as we're about to learn about doves, they also mate for life. The medieval priests were not feminists. And they used a lot of these things to teach women how they ought to be and how they ought to act. So this is about Turtur, the turtle dove. And this is the picture. You've got the two doves together, the lovebirds. Turtur, the turtle dove, gets her name from her cooing. She is a shy creature and always lives in the crests of the mountains where she dwells in lonely solitude. For she shuns the houses of men or any intercourse with them and takes to the woods. In the wintertime, when she has molted, she is said to live in the hollow trunks of trees. For fear that some wolf would attack her young in the nest, the turtle dove spreads the leaves of squills over it, knowing that wolves do not like this kind of leaf. It is truly believed that when a turtle dove is widowed by the loss of her spouse, she takes a dread against the marriage bed and against the very name of matrimony. For the first love has deceived and disappointed her by the death of her darling one, and since he has now become unfaithful forever, she grows bitter about love itself, which produces more sorrow out of death than sweetness out of loving. So she refuses to repeat the experience, nor does she break the bonds of chastity or forget the rights of her wedded husband. She keeps her love for him alone, for him she guards the name of wife. Know then, O woman, how much widowhood is esteemed when it is shown forth, even in birds. Who gave such laws to turtle doves? If I look for a man who did, I cannot find one, for no man has dared, not even Paul dared, to prescribe laws about widowhood. He only says that he wishes the young to marry in order to bear sons, in order to be the mothers of a family, and in order to give no opportunity to the enemy, meaning the devil. And elsewhere he says, it is good if they remain even as he, because they are not continent, they should marry. It is better to marry than to burn. Paul would like women to have that chastity which is kept by turtle doves, but in other respects he urges the custom of matrimony, because mere women are seldom able to come up to the standard of doves. It gets really confusing, doesn't it? God poured out his grace and disposition on Tertur and gave her this virtue of continence. He is also able to lay down what all should follow. The flower of youth does not burn up the turtle dove, nor is she allured by the temptations of occasion. She has no skill to betray her troth, for she knows how to preserve the married chastity that she plighted when she was a newlywed. So that's doves. Complicated, right? She's mad and disappointed and feels deceived, but she loves. It's weird. Very weird. And doves show up tons in ballads, and I probably have time to sing at least one more and maybe two if I'm quick about it. Let's skip this one because it's hard to say. I'm going to sing you a ballad that's kind of different. It's from a man's point of view about a woman. It is very sweet. It is very sorrowful. In the British Isles, they had, until recently, I don't know, maybe they still do, the law of primogeniture, which meant that if you had more than one son, the first son still got everything, pretty much. I mean, the other ones would get like an income, but the first son got everything. And second and third and fourth sons would often go other places, including here, to seek their fortune and make a life for themselves. So this one's called Pretty Sarah. And the tune for this one's interesting because y'all know who Doc Watson is, right? This friend of mine, Roy Andrade, found this tune for Pretty Sarah, which is slightly different than, if you know Pretty Sarah, it might sound slightly different than what you're used to. And it was recorded. There was a recording in the archives of Appalachia of this tune for Pretty Sarah with Doc Watson's father-in-law singing it. I think his name was Gabriel Carl, I can't remember. Anyway, enough yapping, right? Pretty Sarah, I'll write my mother too. I started for to ramble this country all through, and when I get tired, I sit down and weep, and I'll dream of my little Sarah whenever I sleep. My love, she won't have me, and this I understand, for I know freehold Well, it's not this long journey I'm dreading to go, or the country I'm leaving, or the debts that I owe, but it's one thing that grieves me and troubles my mind, that's leaving my little darling way back there behind. Down in some lonesome valley, in some lonesome place, where the wild birds do whistle their notes to increase, I think of my darling, whose waist is so neat, and I know of no better pastime than dream of my sweet. Well, I wish I was a turtle dove, had wings and could fly far away to her lodgings. This night I'd draw nigh, and there in her lily white arms I'd lay all the night and watch them little winders for the dawning of day. So, we got birds in a valley singing to increase their notes. Down in some lonesome valley, we've got that Greek chorus thing I was talking about, the birds kind of telling you how you ought to be feeling about this. And then he wishes to be a turtle dove, to have wings and fly. And this is a beautiful song. I like this tune better than the tune that I learned for Pretty Sarah. What's your thought? What kind of emotion does that evoke? Yeah. And he's got that sort of turtle dove, my heart belongs to only one person. And one of the things that's the most poignant to me is the line where he says, my love, she won't have me in this, I understand, for I'm no freeholder and I have no land. He's like, she can't marry me because she needs to marry somebody of her own. She needs to marry a first son, right? Not a second or a third son. So anyway, I thought that one was interesting for the inclusion of a turtle dove and that connection with the bestiaries, but also with that, what we've come to think of as the symbol of turtle doves. And this is the last one I'm going to sing. This is my favorite song. This is like the Appalachian Macbeth, okay? Or the play that shall not be named or whatever. Sheila K. Adams sang this, and I fell in love with the end of this song. So I'm not going to give you, there's a dove at the end of the song. I'm not going to tell you anything when I'm finished. You're going to tell me what the bird means, okay? What's going on with the bird. And in this one, instead of the woman getting murdered, the man gets murdered. So I figured this is, Turnbull's fair play. It's called Young Hunting. I'm not sure why. come in, my own true love, and spend this night with me. For I have a bed, it's a very fine bed. I'll give it up for thee, I'll give it up for thee. Yeah, she's thinking about what you think she's thinking about. No, I can't come in, I ain't coming in to spend this night with thee. For I have a wife in the old Scotland, this night she waits for me, this night she waits for me. So she pulled out her little penknife, it had been so keen and sharp. She stepped it up to her own true love, and she stabbed him through his heart, she stabbed him through his heart. Woe be, Lady Margaret, he cried. Woe be to thee. There weren't no woman in the old country that I loved any better than thee, that I loved any better than thee. Lay still, my own true love, an hour or two or three, and I will run for the doctor near to save the life of thee, to save the life of thee. It's I can't live, no I won't live, from the wounds you've given me. No doctor's hand, only God's own hand could save my life for me, could save my life for me. He's not gonna live, so she gets practical, right? So she called out for a servant maid, this thing I'll promise thee, if you'll help me on this cold dark night, my gown I'll give to thee, my gown I'll give to thee. So she picked him up by his long yellow hair, and the other took up his feet. They throwed him into the old dry well, which was so cold and deep, which was so cold and deep. Lay there, my own false love, till the flesh rots off in your bones, and your little life in the old Scotland can mourn for your return, can mourn for your return. Up spoke a pretty little dove, all in the willow tree. There weren't no woman in the old Scotland that he loved any better than thee, that he loved any better than thee. Fly down, you pretty little bird, and perch upon my knee. I'll give you a cage of the purest gold, sure beats that willow tree, sure beats that willow tree. I ain't flying down, no I'm not flying down, to perch upon your knee, for you just murdered your own true love, the same you'd serve to me, the same you'd serve to me. Then I'll go and get my arrow and my bow, my arrow and my string. I'll shoot you through your tender little heart. You never more shall sing, you never more shall sing. While you go and get your arrow and your bow, your arrow and your string, I'll fly away on two little wings. Forevermore I'll sing, forevermore I'll sing. So I could spend a whole hour talking about just that song, right? Because it's complicated. And I will say in her defense that clearly they have met before, right? And enjoyed each other's company and evidently her bed. And then he shows up on the door and he knocks and she says, oh, come on in. And he's like, no, can't, I'm married, right? So I can see why she was a little cranky because, so she pulls out her penknife, not a not a fun way to die because a penknife is like, that would take a lot of stabbing, right? Calls the servant maid in and says, since he says, well, I'm not gonna live, she's like, okay, come on, servant maid, help me get rid of the body. And you can have my gown if you'll help me. So she gets rid of the evidence too. This is a smart person, right? And then she hears the voice of the bird. Tell me about the bird. It's her conscience, right? It's like that Greek chorus thing coming back. And if you know anything about the Greek chorus tradition, a lot of times the chorus will like repeat something that either happened off stage or something that a character said to kind of catch them in a moment and to clue the audience in that there's hypocrisy or there's deceit or there's something equally icky going on. And the bird says, there weren't no woman in the old Scotland that you loved any better than thee. And that's the line that made him have, or made her have a valid conscience and say, oh, I'll go get the doctor, right? And then when he says, no, too late for me, she gets practical and throws him in the well, as you do. I hope this has been fun and that you've enjoyed it. I've had a great time, so thank you for inviting me. If anybody has a couple questions, I think I have time to answer. I have 3 minutes. Yes.
The rook or crows, ravens, do they come into that very many?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
usually a bad sign.
Yes.
With the joker.
Yes.
Yeah.
The corbies and ravens, yes. Like there's a night, the trois corbies, the 3 corbies sitting on and there's a knight who's dying and they're basically waiting until he's dead so they can go. But yes, they're definitely present in these books of beasts with symbolism that's pretty dark.
Yeah, they were in the book's description of swans is so far off, but they really are. Like,
Yeah.
They describe them as very sweet creatures. They're not very aggressive.
Very aggressive. Right. They're mean. I know, like, yeah. Like I say, medieval natural
White
science
only, but they're not.
Oh.
They have black swans.
is a long way from
Yeah.
our
Reality.
natural. So any other questions real quick before we finish? Thank you for coming. I had fun singing tonight. It's been way too long. And they did not ask me to say this, but if you enjoyed this, I run a nonprofit. They run a nonprofit, Katie and Ryan, and I can't see who's back there under the hat.
Gordon.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon. They run a nonprofit. If you enjoyed this, it's brought to you by the Heritage Alliance. Any little small donations you can give to organizations like this that offer you something for free and offer me the chance to get up here and squeal a little bit on stage. We really need it right now. The times are tough. So if it's in your heart, be sure and reward them for a job well done. Don't count me, but other stuff they do. But seriously, think about just any little small donation goes a long way right now. Am I right?
Yes.
So thank you for coming out and thank you for supporting the program. And maybe if I'm nice, they'll invite me back again sometime. So.
Teaching's